Morning, everybody. Thanks for making yourself all available on a Sunday morning, isn't it? This morning, we are supposed to go on to listen to APLC Working Group's update. And as you would remember, yesterday we had some discussion under different groups, and the representative of each group will come forward and present what they have discussed, giving us some idea on the content of discussion and what is the direction that we we tend to take to move forward. And I would like to call upon the first speakers, the speakers representing AML Working Group, Andrew Wee and Lau Zhen Tang, to come up. I think that they are just a short introduction. Professor Andrew, I think needs no introduction. Those of you who have listened to his excellent presentation at AML, and he's internationally recognized expert in the field at AML. Dr. Lau Zhen Tang is a senior consultant hematologist from Singapore General Hospital. So I think between two of them, they would let us know what is happening in the AML working group. Okay.
Hi, thanks everyone. Good morning, and thank you for attending the session. We have a pretty long discussion on what we wanted to do as a group in our AML session. So I'm just going to do a quick summary of what came out from this discussion. So the main points is firstly a focused combined data set. So relatively easy, because we are not going to, if we have a global large AML database that takes years, probably with multiple lines of agreements to set up. But if we do a focus, small subset analysis, it might be a relatively easy consolidation data, and also rapid publication so that we can show that we are doing something already. Establishment of a regional treatment recommendation. I think we should avoid the word guidelines in this case because there are regulatory implications. We call it guidelines. But with basically a more harmonized global framework without too much restrictions on individual countries' limitations. And of course, thirdly, clinical trials. That will be the holy grail which we are pursuing. We can do trials under the framework of APLC that might be able to promote the group. So I think one of the projects we were discussing on firstly was a small, say, TP53 mutated AML or even AML with MDS data set. From a general poll from all the involved countries present yesterday, we estimated around 10,000 AML samples already. And out of that, if say 5% is TP53, we are going to get, that's quite a lot, 500 at least of AML with TP53 mutations. So we may be able to review previously unknown associations, and such a large subgroup, we probably can get a pretty good publication. Currently, I think the countries, if anyone I've missed out, do raise your hand and tell us. But currently, from the yesterday's discussion, looks like we five regions have accessible registries: Australia, China, Singapore, Taiwan, and Thailand. uh, Professor Wang from Tianjin and Dr. Christopher Deepak from Tan Tock Seng has volunteered to lead this project. We'll probably start sharing an Excel spreadsheet on the kind of fields we want to know, fill in, and probably start from there. The other thing we were discussing were treatment recommendations. There were some differences across the various regions in terms of access to drugs. Frontline, I think, generally more harmonized, but when it comes to relapsed refractory chemo ineligible patient subsets, we are seeing some differences. So there's a possible we can establish a website, that incorporates a generalized guide recommendation, then with zooming into specific countries with their country specific nuances. I think Dr. Ho from Taiwan has volunteered to lead this project, and we'll probably be hearing from him further on. The third thing we have discussed was an IIT, basically a frontline gilteritinib maintenance for FLT3 AML patients ineligible for intensive chemotherapy. Even though I say azacitidine venetoclax, we were talking about low-DEC venetoclax and decitabine venetoclax. So any one of those patients who are on such a regimen, who are unable to tolerate long-term aza-ven treatment, the trial aims to transit them to gilteritinib maintenance with a defined average limit dose duration, maybe 6 to 24 months. We of course hoping for longer from our sponsors, but this one has to be discussed. The continuation is until progression, intolerance, or death, and we'll probably compare it with our historical cohort data. AOB, basically we are thinking maybe we should establish a quarterly regular meeting for working group members, and also establish early agreement for authorship and credit sharing and publication, so that there won't be any disagreements in the future. Yeah, that's all I have for you. If any questions, please.
Maybe the only other thing was maybe establishing a general APLC master data sharing agreement. So we just have to do it once. So there's future projects, we don't have to do that again.
Any question from the floor?
Yeah, so with regards to the master data sharing agreement, I think possible for us to do, that will probably be across the working groups. We see whether AL is interested. CL, I think there was some interest in doing some registry data sharing stuff. Then maybe what we'll do is we get maybe the EXCO members of each country to lead, and then tell us for each of the country who are the members and institutions persons to be involved in data in this thing. So to have a master data sharing agreement is very tough for us when we do a data sharing in our institution with, let's say, a established CRO or established company. It takes about 6 months to actually trash it out, and it's just between two parties. You know, the lawyers like to earn their money, so they will do and fro and do and fro, especially if it's a new one, and there are a lot of differences in that. So I don't know whether it's worth the trouble for us, even with our institution, and our neighbors across within Singapore, it takes a long time. So I really don't know whether is a worthwhile hanging fruit. Um, um, it depends on what kind of data you want to share, Andrew. Patient specific data or anonymized data. If it's aggregate data, then we probably don't need a data sharing agreement. According to our local HBRA regular guidelines. But if it's patient specific information that can be tracked or linked, not HIPAA, that means it's linked to patient data, then we have to have that. Are you going to share anonymized data or aggregate data, or are you going to share patient specific information?
As an example, just the P53 project.
If it's
anonymized.
P53 is all encoded, then we probably don't need. Then maybe we don't do that because there's quite a lot of work to do. Yeah. Anyone have any comments on the data sharing? Maybe the ALL group and the CL group. Eric, you want to comment?
Yeah, I think I agree. If this anonymized data, I think we don't actually need, as long as in individual places or countries, they have their own ethics approval. I think that would be good
That'll
enough.
be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's for Hong Kong, Singapore. What about Malaysia and Thailand? Maybe our chairs.
When we do the AMN trial with Singapore, I think we actually get our own EC. Actually, there I think 2 or 3 hospitals in Malaysia participated. So we use the clinical trial, the template from Singapore, but we had to get our own EC.
Correct.
approval.
Because in the clinical
Yes.
trial, you actually share patient-specific
Yes,
information
that's correct.
identifiable.
That's
So
correct.
therefore, you need the template,
Yes.
and then you need to do a master. But that takes time, and that's the resources of AMN International Myeloma Foundation, the behemoth, as the background. For us to do it could be very tough.
Actually, to be fair, they didn't do much. They just give us a template and say you go and sort out between the hospital EC and the
Maybe
and
for
the
Malaysia
lawyers.
easier lah, but
So-
for
so,
Singapore is not easy.
Yeah.
In Thailand, is there any data agreement restrictions to share?
Normally, we have a data agreement restrictions for the site, and we have a like a go. It's like a country's registry, and if we want to use the data set from the registry, maybe we have to ask for an allowance of the registry group first, and we have the other options that we share only our site specific
Okay.
data set is made
But if it's
easy.
aggregate or anonymized data, you don't need agreement. Is that correct? Same. What about Korea and Taiwan?
Sorry,
Yes.
Go, Jinjin here.
Hi, Jin.
I think actually with AMN and we also shared, we did have some collaboration with other registry. And actually, besides EC, we do need to have an agreement. That is for MOE. Perhaps private may be a little bit different. So our EC and they do want to have some form of agreement. So
It's
between-
MOU, lah, a data sharing
Yeah,
agreement,
yeah,
which is what we
yeah.
said. Yeah. So that one will go through lawyers and then
Yes,
a lot of
but
things
it's-
that they'll bet here, bet there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it does take a little bit of time,
Yeah.
but it can be done.
A lot of work, lah.
Not so much as
I
long
don't
as
know why
the
you say no.
others-
Okay, never
as
mind,
long
okay,
as the
subjective.
agreement has been
Yeah.
drafted, then it probably it's between the university with the university rather than I'm not sure how with the
Universities are
consortium.
easier. Yeah. So ours is public institutions. Lawyers tend to be a bit quite difficult for our side.
Dr. Ashley has.
Ashley.
So from Australia, it will be easier, for example, through, I think from Andrew can correct me, through the NBCR ALLG registry, because the ethics has been done, the patient consent has been given, and the process for the secondary use of data is in place. If it's from an institution, I agree with everything which was stated before. A new HREC low risk needs to be put in, and the data access committees need to be approval for the data release, and there will need to be data sharing agreements. From a multi-institutional point of view, from Peter McCallum, There's also going to be a sponsorship committee which needs to be involved if it's from that hospital.
Yeah.
So it is complex. It's a
So I guess
long-term
actually
strategy.
you'll be dealing a lot more detail with that later
I'll talk
during
about it
your
today.
discussion on the registries. So maybe we don't take too much time from AML Group. We will leave the last comment to Adisa, and then we'll move on.
Yes, I think we did it once. I think at that time I did it with Queen Mary Hospital in US and my institution, my university. At that time we shared the data of APL. Yeah, and we probably it already present in EHA. At that time, it's between institute. We do the critical trial agreement to the dean. After that, we pass the ethic. But if in Thailand, if you want to do multi-center, we have the center for do the one-time ethic committee for all over. But I think it should be okay to do is a register data.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe there's a registry issue, so we will let the registry group settle all this agreement for data sharing, and then they so they have 1 hour, so we don't want to take your time. They have 1 whole hour to discuss later on. Okay. Any other things for the AML group?
That's all for us.
And thank you for AML working group. And then we will move to the next sessions with a 15-minute presentation from ALL working group. So I would like to invite ALL working group representative, including Dr. Kwang, Dr. Ashley, and Dr. Carlos. Please on the stage.
Thank you and good morning. I will let Dr. Carroll lead.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Carol from Hong Kong. So first of all, we would like to thank really the organizing committees of APLC for providing such an excellent platform for us to discuss collaboration and to really get to know each other more. So I'm responsible for presenting our working group plan on ALL. So here we just, I'm pleased to say that we have a very detailed and fruitful discussion among different members, Hong Kong, mainland, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, etc. So we have a very good roundtable discussion to go through our own local practice and the challenges that we faced. And we discussed our current management approaches and as well as that of for diagnosis and monitoring. And it seems that though in some centers, genomic diagnosis is quite readily available or even already covered in a standard practice, but in fact, it is still lacking the NGS as part of the routine workup in many countries. And a similar case for monitoring with MRD. So I think many members also expressed some difficulty to arrange a routine MRD because due to cost issues. For example, some government may only cover like one time point once in a lifetime. So obviously that would not be enough. And as mentioned, we also discussed the treatment and also treatment approaches in different subtypes of ALL like Ph negative, AYA, Ph positive, older ALL, etc. And obviously, there are quite a significant variation among different regions. For example, for Ph negative, I think I'm happy to see that many members are applying pediatric protocol at least in some of their Ph negative patients. But the upper age limit still varies. Some are really AYA age, some up to 30s or some up to 40. But I think we agree that in the age of maybe around 30 to 40 is always a challenge. And also we also covered the availability of different novel treatment like blinatumomab or even CAR T cell, which also have some financial implication and how APLC can contribute or help us in general. So I think we don't have much time. So I think I would just focus on this slide. So these are the priorities that we have come up with. So first of all, it's actually the easiest one. Obviously, we have already contest of different members, and I think it would be important for us to have a more regular communication channel. Now we have email, we have Zoom, all sort of virtual means that are available to really facilitate communication and sharing of experience. Because some centers also expressed the challenges in using pediatric protocols because they are not really comfortable in those like relatively older adults, as I said, like 30 to 40 odd years old. They are not quite comfortable with that. So I think by sharing our experience and hopefully maybe we have some form of like quarterly meeting, just like the AML working group would be nice. And also to really let each other know what we are up to. And as I said, each center really has their local adaptation of different ALL treatment strategies, be it AYA, older, so forth and so on. And even for the use of pediatric protocols, there are different forms, some using Massport but with different age limits, some using their local adaptation of the pediatric protocol. So we would like to, like our members to really have a better documentation of our local treatment strategies. And some actually, like the Thai colleagues, they also mentioned that in fact they have already some publication or abstract regarding that. So we would also like to really gather all these data or articles for a more proper documentation to facilitate sharing and communication. And our members share that they are informed by the pharmaceutical company for L. asparaginase that they will cease production or supply to some countries like Singapore or Thailand, and which would result them to be forced to switch to the pegylated version. So as we all heard from Professor Lucas' lecture yesterday, there would be more challenge in using the pegylated form, and also apart from the cost, of course, and some also mention a dose reduction of pegylated version is possible with maybe some the asparaginase activity monitoring. So we would like to really develop guidelines on that, as well as how to prevent and manage the toxicities. And the links point is also based on the use of asparaginase, because many members express a concern with the pediatric protocol. One major challenge is really the asparaginase use. So we would like to really share our data, or maybe even in the form of a registry to document toxicity of asparaginase and also the outcomes, maybe like the more rare ones like pancreatitis, thrombosis, or less commonly bleeding, or the very most common form of liver toxicity, etc., so that we can know how to deal with it and how to expect for them. And also we covered the importance of having some consensus on the use of MRD, because we hopefully by having some form of expert opinion or some consensus guideline, we can help our members to really expedite the support of MRD in their locality. And so the government hopefully will be more willing to support the regular MRD monitoring. And hopefully the APLC may be able to ask the pharmaceutical company like Amgen to really help to sponsor maybe at least like 2 to 3 time points, quite standard pre-transplant, or 3 months, so forth and so on, to help our members really have the funding to support the MRD monitoring. And we understand that in the field of ALL, there are many novel treatment, many monoclonal antibodies, or even CAR-T, which unfortunately are not readily available in some, at least, of our members' countries. So some members did mention that we asked how we can, like as APLC, facilitate the application with the government. And some did mention maybe the government will look at the health economic data. And if it is cost effective, then the government will be more willing to support them. So we're hoping that maybe in a longer term, we can have some help to arrange some health economic analysis in terms of therapy or diagnostic workup, etc. And lastly, I think we just now also mentioned about the potential need for institutional governments for all our subsequent work, like registry, sharing of data, or some further collaboration. Yes. So that's all we would like to report.
So I have several comments. The first one is very quite important for everyone to note. So you notice when you first join, we asked you to indicate what working groups you want to be, and we didn't restrict the choice. You can have 1, 3, or 4. Now there'll be actually 4. We've added CL working group, so there's 4. So it's AML, ALL, registry, 3 lah. Basically now CLL, and one person can actually have all 3, or you just 1. Correct? Now, in this meeting, physically, of course, we cannot split up. So we ask you to indicate only 1, and that's your primary working group. But if you want to be, let's say you attended AML and you want to be on an AL working group, by all means, that means you can still join the AL working group meetings. So although you have the registry of all the members that were at your there are members that are not present, and there are members who are interested in ALL but maybe attended CLL or so forth. So you can get the list from Lynn. Lynn will tell you who are the people who indicated interest in a group, and when you send out your quarterly meetings, invite them. Number 1. Number 2, I should have attended your session, because there's a misconception what AAPLC can do. We're not a lobbying group. We're not going to lobby your health institutions and all that for you. You can actually develop consensus guidelines, if Winston Town don't use guideline recommendations, and then if it's published in a high enough impact journal and a very notable experts from the region, you can actually then use that to go to your regulatory or your supporting agencies. Then that's what we have done in some of the countries. So these recommendations will say, okay, these are recommendations, minimum care is like this, then you do that. And then if you want to do actually, let's say, talk to MGM or something to do that, it's your group to do. We can as front, your working group, you have that, and we can also, if you don't have a connection to, let's say, the top MGM people, we can actually link you up to do that. The third point is that you have a lot of areas that you have recommended, but you have, unlike the AML group, you actually appointed leads. So our experience, if you don't have leads, then the two of you, and maybe Guang, I don't know whether Guang can do or not, will end up doing all the work, So you need to appoint certain leads so that you make sure then you get the leads to actually do. Unless, Carol, you have very energy and you want to take over everything, then do that. And then focus on a few things, because what we are trying to do is to gain traction, because we are brand new, first summit, right? So we need to have international presence, we need publications, we need projects to tell the industry that we are credible, we are here to save a long term. So if there are guidelines, even Spraygenes or MRD, get it published, and then these actionable items. Basically, these are just some suggestions.
Yeah, so definitely as a short-term goal, for the impact for the institutions who are participating, the PEG asparaginase is the highest priority. What we figured out from the group yesterday was for its practical impact, as well as and developing recommendations for its use, which have evolved potentially from the original doses used in the trials to institutions which have experience in that. So from the ALL treatment guideline or ALL survey we do have that experience, and I think that's an easy win. So absolutely, we have a strategy going forward in terms of addressing those priorities, and then moving on to the longer term strategies as we previously touched on for registry development, etc.
I definitely agree. Actually, I think the PEG Asper group, that project is very, very really a needy problem that is going to come to us, and a lot of us struggle, and then we heard experience from the Western, and we can share experiences to anticoagulate and how to reduce the dose and all these things. So I think that's a very, very, very impactful project, meaningful project, and it can probably have quite a impactful publication because in one of the regional papers, and I think that'll be quite well read. Yeah. Andrew.
Just with the institutional agreements, I guess the difficulty is there needs to be one body which all the centres can have the agreement with. So there needs to be a coordinating body, because the APLC does not have sort of like indemnity and legal sort of positioning. We may need to think about appointing some overarching body. It could be a hospital, it could be a university. One alternative which I could suggest is we could also utilise the Australian Leukemia Lymphoma Group, because this has sponsorship responsive as an independent organisation, and it can then enlist each centre, and then each centre would just have an agreement with that
Yes.
organisation, and then we could still do all of the projects under that banner, but only if it's sort of acceptable to the group, and only if there's not some other alternative which you can recommend. But that might be the easiest.
Yeah,
What do you think, Ashley?
I would agree with that approach,
Yeah.
because from a multinational kind of agreements, we do need a sponsor.
Yep. So I was going to bring that in my clinical trials session because it also impacts trials. And so EPLC is co-hosted within our local institution, but they only made it very clear that they are helping us facilitate and all the logistics now. They're not going to cover us, indemnify us, and all that sort of thing, because it's too big issue. So we are not a company under them, but we are co-located with them. They are happy to host us. We use their auditing services, their lawyers and everything, so and we pay a fee to them. So one is to actually work with like ALG or any of the big study groups within the region that can host that, and that's fine. So we are very flexible with that, and then we can link up all the lawyers. So that is one proposal as well. Yeah, that's very good. So that will be discussed a little bit more detail when Ashley does the registry group.
Okay, for the interest of time, we move on to the next discussion, CAL working group. I think, can we invite Professor Eric and Lalita? Yes.
So from the discussions with the group yesterday, we come up with a few topics that what we need to do first, and then the subsequent work would come up later on. And this is what we come up yesterday in the group. So we need to gathering people more into the group. Yesterday, we have the delegates from China, Singapore, Hong Kong. We need to, gathering a few more from Australia. Some mentioned, Eric mentions Dr. Tams may join us, but we have to, invite, him first and more people, including and we got the delegates from Taiwan, Malaysia, and Thailand. So we just starting the group, and we hope it'd be more people joining us. And we discussed about some other countries in Asia Pacific that should joining the group. That might be some problem, and Professor Goh would mention that later on. Why not? Every countries in Asia Pacific can join us, and so this is the first step. So we forming the groups, and second, we are going to update our CLL consensus. Yesterday, when Eric presented our consensus previously 2 or 3 years ago, and that needs to be updated and engaging more delegates, and also the recent publications and data that evolve rapidly. Okay, so this is the second plan, which can be done quickly. Third, we are going to building up the CLL registry, and that need to be, starting with the platform, gathering data, and mainly would be patients' characteristic, clinical treatments, natural histories, and the long-term outcome by combining the local. I mean, everyone's have local registry, so we would like to combine the local registry and prospectively collected the new cases in our registry. However, in terms of regulations, everyone's discussed, we would not touch for that. So, I mean, this is going to be would be, I mean, depending. The Professor Go also mentions about ethics committees approval, and it depends on each regulations. But I think for Thailand, for sure, we need EC approval as well, not just only registry set up and then gathering data in terms of to get evidence that we have, I mean, the EC approval. Okay, so then future plan, we may have investigator-initiated trials, but we haven't touched which one we would like to, I mean, do specifically, but that would be done in the future. And of course, for educations, we would love to have more education for physicians because the knowledge evolve rapidly. And I think that's all. Would you like to comment on this or add up something?
Yeah, I think the CLL group is a new initiative in the APLC. I think with the blessing with the senior members of the APLC. So we agree that we should form a CLL group because CLL, in fact, is not a very common disease entity among Asian population. So we think we should sort of establish a working group to try to see if we can do something about CLL and benefit our CLL patient population. Now, since we are newly established, this is a new initiative, we just want to start everything slowly. So we formed the group, and since we already have a consensus recommendation paper, but this is somehow a bit already not up to date. So with all the new information, all the trial data is upcoming, so we think we should, in a year's time, we should be able to update and publish a new consensus statement for our group. And the third part is about building up a registry. I think we should later on, we'll have more discussions on how to build registry. And of course, we know that there are difficulties, including the regulatory and also ethics issues. So, but we hope with that collaborative effort, we should be able to overcome most of the difficulties and establish a registry on CLL. The good thing about CLL is that we do not have a huge patient population. So it would be relatively easy compared with ALL or AML. So we kind of have an easy task in that regard. So the other thing, investigator-initiated trials, I think Dr. Goh later on may talk about that. Certainly some difficulties if we have to have the trial sort of carry out across different countries. So it has its own intrinsic problems. But I think Dr. Goh later on will talk more about that. And finally, I think it will be, again, very important, as I said, CLL is not a common disease entity. I think not a lot of physicians may have sort of a lot of experience in treating patients with CLL. So I think providing good education, up-to-date information for these hematologists or physicians treating CLL patients would be very important as well. So that's all I want to say. So we welcome any comments and questions.
If not, we can break for tea. We are 1 minute ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.